The Travels and Adventures of Little Baron Trump and His Wonderful Dog Bulger. Chapter 7, Part 4. Farewell, little master. Heaven make good to thee tenfold thy kindness to me. I will await thee 3 days. If by that time I do not hear thy voice calling me to serve thee again, I shall return to my kindred. Advancing to the cleft in the rocky wall, I found the gourd hanging by a leathern thong. The loud rattling of the seeds as it broke the deep silence of this wild and lonely place, fit vestibule to temple devoted to silence, solitude, and meditation, startled me painfully. Restoring the gourd to its place, I leaned forward to catch the faintest sound of the hermit's voice, which might reach my ear. It came not. The silence grew more oppressive than before. The broken, twisted rocks overhanging and surrounding me took on fantastic forms. In every dark cavity, I saw some misshapen creature stirring about. A dreadful feeling of loneliness crept over me. No sound came save the loud throbbing of my own heart. A half an hour went by. Beniaga spake not a word. Perhaps he sleeps, I whispered to myself. My words awakened the echoes of the rocky recesses, and the word sleeps came back to my ears in 100 different tones, now loud and hissing, now soft and sibilant. At last, a full hour had now gone by since I had rattled the seeds of the dried gourd, and yet the blind hermit spake no word. Again the death-like stillness sank upon the place, and the gathering shadows grew deeper and deeper. Could the guide have played me false? I asked myself. Nay, that cannot be. And yet, why comes there no sound from Beniaga's cave? Shall I summon him once more? May he not have gone forth to gather food? Am I doomed to be turned back when I have reached the very threshold of my long wished for desire? These and hundreds of other questions flitted through my mind as I stood in the dark and gloomy corridor that led to Beniaga's cave. By the shadows on the rocky wall, I could see that I had now been standing at least 2 hours, awaiting summons to draw nearer. But hush! He speaks at last. My heart bounded joyfully, and yet as if with a leaden weight upon it. Who is it that disturbs my meditation? Were the hermit's words. A stranger, a brother, one who needs thy guidance, I replied in a firm yet humble tone. No human creature is stranger to me. Thou art too young to be my brother. The light that has deafed me shines only for my own feet, came slowly from the hermit's cave in a full, deep, rich voice. True, great master, I replied, but then may I not be thy son and follow thy footsteps? Thou art very wise for thy years, spake Beniaga. Not so wise, great master, was my reply, as I shall be when I have sat at thy feet. Come somewhat closer. Thy child voice sounds like an echo, continued the blind hermit. And yet thou art not a child. Some great spirit plays in sportive mood behind thy face. I see that thou art blue-eyed and flaxen-haired. Thine eyes are set wide asunder, and above them towers a dome of thought. Thy home is in the land of the Norsemen. At least, thy fathers dwelt there. On thy cheek glows the crimson which, in the peach and apple land, stains the autumn foliage. As I had not yet even stepped within Beniaga's cave, these words of the blind hermit caused a strange feeling, half of fear, half of dread fascination, to creep over me. My heart throbbed violently. His ear, far keener than birds or beasts, caught the sound. "Fear not, little one," said he, in deep, rich tones, full and swelling like the voice of organ pipes. "If thou canst content thyself with a handful of berries when thou art hungry, with a draught from the neighboring rill when thou art thirsty, if thy young limbs are sturdy enough to wrest repose from a rocky couch, then thou art welcome. If not, go thy way. For 20 years I have been busy with a certain problem, and have no time to stop and spread a more bountiful repast. But season thy frugal fare with thy wisdom, great master," I returned, "and it will be sweeter to my palate than stall-fed ox and mellow wine." "Come somewhat nearer, little traveler, so that I may see thee better," spake the blind hermit, kindly and gently. I did not wait for further summons, but stepped boldly into Beni Aga's cave. It was, in truth, little more than a lofty cleft in the rocks, with several deeper recesses, in which the shadows lay undisturbed. Its roof, of jagged, broken, and blackened masses of stone, was arched and lofty. In and about it, flocks of small swallow-like birds nested, and at times broke out in musical twitterings. Barren, gloomy, and utterly forlorn as the place was, within chair, mat, bed, or blanket, every thought of its awful loneliness and abject surroundings vanished from my mind as I fixed my eyes upon its occupant. As I had stepped within the limit of Beni Aga's cave, he had slowly risen from his bench of stone and now stood erect before me. Of powerful build, tall and majestic, with long snow-white hair and snowy beard, he towered like a statue of Parian marble in the dim twilight, to which now, however, my eyes had become accustomed. I gazed upon him, half in fear, half in delight. I could feel my breath coming faster and faster as I riveted my gaze upon his wonderful face, so full of love, patience, courage, and contentment. Had he bent his eyes upon me, I would never have believed him blind, for they were unclouded, full, and lustrous. And yet, on second look, I saw that their gleam was like the brightness of the polished gem, that lacks the softness of living, sensitive orbs. Beneaga was clad in a rube garb of dried skins from which the hair had been skillfully scraped. Tossed back from his broad and massive brow, his white locks hung in heavy ringlets on his broad shoulders, while his wonderful beard, as white and glistening as spun glass, around his body twice entwined, clung like a snow wreath twisted about a sturdy oak by the circling gale. So like a mighty son of earth he towered, rude yet noble, untaught yet learned, human yet godlike, that I stood transfixed. My tongue forgot its tricks of speech. I felt that I should turn to stone if he did not speak to me. While standing thus speechless, robbed of power to move a limb, Bulger broke the spell. At Beniaga's feet lay a sick dog, infirm through age and not ailment, blind like his master, his head pillowed on some soft, dry leaves, the only semblance of bed within the hermit's cave. Bulger's gaze fell upon this pitiful spectacle. With cautious steps, outstretched neck, and wide-opened eyes, he approached his sick brother, sniffed him over, licked his face and ears, whined piteously, and then fixed a pleading look upon me as if to ask, "Dear little master, canst thou do nothing to help my poor sick brother? Canst thou not make him well again, so that I may coax him out into the warm sunshine to play with him?" Beniaga spake, "I see that thou art not alone, little wanderer. Thou bringest a companion with thee. He is welcome. His tenderness and sympathy will carry joy and gladness to the heart of my suffering friend, whose head I pillowed upon some soft grass. I too love dogs. Thou seest they are my sole companions. Their love is less exacting than human love. They require no pledge or promise. They understand my silence, read my thoughts, and are content. But come, little traveler, time presses. Speak, what brings thee to Beni Aga's cave? If it be idle curiosity, depart. But if thou seekest counsel, if thou comest with honest intent to ask my advice in some arduous matter, I am ready to serve thee. I thank thee, great master, I replied humbly. Know then that I would traverse the great gloomy forest, and that report hath reached my ear that thou alone, of all human beings, canst guide me through its never-lifting shadows, shield me from its poisonous vapors, and let me not follow my own footprints in ever-widening circles, until reason itself feels the dreaded spell of that vast, trackless, pathless wilderness. "'Tis true," gave answer Beniaga in deep, sad tones. "I ran perform the service thou askest. But, O my son, thou must know that a most sacred vow holds me in its mysterious power, securely locked, that I should lead no fellow creature through that pathless wood, save on certain conditions." "Name them, great master," I cried. "That he who asks this service," continued Beniaga, "you shall tarry 30 days and nights with me in my rocky home, to inure him to the burden of awful gloom and silence. That he, in all that time, taste of no food save the berries on which I feed. Slake his thirst with no draught other than that which I bring him from the neighboring rill, and sleep on the bare rock, even as I do. Reflect, the apprenticeship is severe. Deem it not dishonorable nor weak to shrink from so hard a task. Pause, reflect, ere thou answerest. I'll resume my meditation for an hour, and then question thee again." "Be it so, great master," I made answer, and Beniaga's sightless eyes seemed to turn to the shrunken form of the dying dog. Silence filled the cave, and feeble twilight struggled against the gathering gloom. My thoughts turned homeward. I could hear the gentle voice of the Baroness, my mother. The castle windows were lighted, and the tall lindens shook a rich perfume from their blossoming boughs. All seemed so sweet and peaceful. My mother's voice reached me. I caught its every word. "Set forth my son's repast," said she in soft, mild tones. "See that his favorite dishes are kept warm. Choose none but the choicest wine for him, and take good care that his bed be soft and even, and his pillows smooth." My breath came only with painful efforts as these words rang in my ears. I started up with a bound. In spite of myself, I took a step toward the portal of Beniaga's cave, where the last rays of the setting sun tipped the angry, jagged, broken rocks with gold. "Well, my son," spake the blind hermit, "art thou still resolute?" "Oh, great master," I cried, turning back and drawing near to him, "fear not. Though puny in body, yet was I born with the strength of steel in my limbs, and the willpower of a score of common men. Lead thou on. I will follow thee." A faint smile spread over the noble countenance of the blind hermit as he replied, "I have not told thee all, my son. Till we pass from these walls of stone and stand in the open air, thou must not speak a word aloud. Nay, nor in whisper either. I will set thy food and drink before thee, and that," he continued, pointing to a projecting shelf of rock, "shall be thy bed. On its bare surface rest thy limbs when nature bids thee sleep. Art thou still resolute?" "Aye, great master," I replied with loud and buoyant voice. "I will do thy bidding." "'Tis well," said Beniaga. "I like thy brave and steadfast soul. But hold me not hard of heart in condemning thee to this gloom and silence. Temper the bitterness of thy faith by giving thyself over to deep and earnest meditation during the few brief hours that it shall last. Forget the so-called world, a bubble that bursts when thou thinkest to grasp it, a shadow which thou pursuest with eager pace, and yet canst never overtake, a mirage rising before the weary traveller's gaze, with visions of delicious gardens, watered by limpid rills and cooled by sparkling fountains, only to melt away and leave him more weak and fainting than before. Look within thyself. Thou art the temple of an immortal soul. Enter its portals. Fix thine eyes on the mysterious writings there unrolled. Grow not weary and discouraged if thou canst not decipher their meaning as easily as thou wouldst the books of man. And oh, my son, should the gloom and silence of Beni Aga's cave weigh too heavily on thy young soul, raise thine eyes to some one of the many lines which I have carved upon these rocky walls in my hours of recreation. They will guide thee back to sweet contentment, give thee strength to persevere unto the end. And now, my son, farewell. Though with thee, near thee, even by thy side, yet remember, I am far from thee. Aye, farther than earthly staff can measure. Be hopeful, be strong, and thou wilt conquer. Again, farewell. Farewell, great master, farewell, I exclaimed, and as my words echoed through the vast rocky chamber, the last ray of light fled before the thickening gloom, and all was inky blackness. I had noticed ere the darkness came that I was standing near the projecting shelf of rock which was to serve as my bed when nature called me to rest. Turning now softly, I groped my way toward it and stretched myself at full length on its bare surface. For a few moments all went well. Such a conflict of thought was raging in the chambers of my mind that I took no note of the chill which this couch of stone sent creeping through my limbs. I closed my eyes, thinking to coax sleep to them, and thus forget the ever-increasing pain. In vain. It seemed as if death itself had seized my feet between its icy palms. Sharp pains leapt from one joint to another, and wherever my body came into contact with that couch of stone, it seemed as if 1,000 needles pricked my flesh. And we'll pause here, and we'll continue with this story in the next video. Please like, subscribe, leave a comment below. Thanks so much for watching. I love you guys, as Tigger says. Ta-ta for now.